What's up, tribe? How you guys doing? We are back for another season of Sisters. So this is going to be Sisters Season 2, Episode 1. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I hope you like this video. So we see Danny and, her cowboy boyfriend, and Danny doesn't want him to leave. Now, she goes from one extreme to the other. If y'all remember back from last season, and he was like, Danny, I got to go to work. And she was like, why? He was like, because that's what they pay me to do. And so she finally has to admit that she does like him. She doesn't like it when he doesn't call her or he doesn't text her, and that she really needs that from him. And he says, cool, I will call you, I will text you, but you can't keep it in. Like, you have to communicate and let me know what's really going on. And after they have this great conversation, she still don't want him to leave, child. Danny is a mess, okay? Then we get down to the hospital and we are dealing with Sabrina and Maurice. Maurice is getting ready to be discharged from the hospital. He is flirting with the doctor, and he actually asked the doctor out for coffee, and the doctor says yes. Now Maurice doesn't believe that the doctor is really gonna call him and follow up, but he said he just being nice, but it is what it is. But it was Maurice being Maurice, child, extra over the top. But he is definitely feeling better, and we are thankful. That it didn't go the other way, because Maurice listen, he don't want to leave. He want the doctor to give him a prostate exam. Listen, Maurice was a mess, okay? Now, I'm going to just go ahead and finish talking about Sabrina before we get to the other stuff, because Sabrina was easy. So, Sabrina goes back to her apartment. She's getting ready for work, and Calvin comes to the door. And remember, the last thing we saw of Calvin was basically him cussing her out, threatening to hit her, and all kinds of stuff. And so, he's looking very embarrassed, and he's very apologetic. And, Sabrina's caught between, you was wrong, but I guess I can't really be that mad because, I did think you was gay for like this whole time and was talking shit about you and, all that stuff. So she was very understanding, and he was like, no, I was wrong. I threatened to hit you, and I just need you to know that I really, really am sorry. I didn't mean it, I hope you accept my apology. And she was like, I get it. Like, you're going through a lot, how's everything going with your dad? And so we found out that the father that passed away, had already made his own funeral arrangements. He wanted to be cremated. They had already had that whole thing planned out. And a lot of people plan the funerals now, but certainly when they know they're sick and it's probably terminal, those are the kinds of conversations. They're hard conversations, but they're conversations. And Calvin sort of feels left out of the loop. He was like, apparently my dads have already figured this thing out, and, basically the funeral is tomorrow, or the service is tomorrow, and I'm just basically going to be there. And she was like, wow, that's kind of quick. And he was like, yeah, and so he said, but I wanted to let you know that, one of the things that my dad wanted that was in his will was that he wants to have a drag show. And of course, remember, his dad really loved drag. We saw that last season with the whole when Calvin did drag, and she was just like, oh my God, what is he doing here? Right. He said, but my other dad felt like maybe we could turn my father's last wish into a benefit for Maurice. And so he was like, you think you can maybe get Maurice to come out? And she was like, of course I can. Like, drag, drag and drinks, especially if I tell him I'm paying, like, he'll be there. So he was like, okay, cool. So then he gives her a hug and he tells her he loves her. And of course she was like, he said he loved me. But of course he went right on like, oh, I see you cooking some omelets. Oh, okay. Cause she said, I'm about to cook something. Do you want to, stay for a snack? And he was like, girl, I ain't never turned down your cooking. So of course Sabrina was like, we'll get back to them, child. So Andy is wandering along this road where they done left her with no purse, no phone, okay, in them heels and in that dress, okay. And guy rolls up in a Suburban, asks her if she needs a ride, what's going on. And she does what most of us would do, gives him the side eye and ignores him and keeps it moving. And he was like, listen, do you need a ride? She was like, nah, I'm good. He was like, listen. And so he ends up pulling over, and he gets out, and of course she's like real leery of him, which most of us would be. And so finally he was like, listen, I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to, is there some way I can give you a ride somewhere? Like, if it's something I can do. And so she was like, do you have a phone? He was like, yeah. So she ends up using his phone to call. First, she, of course, she called, Karen first. Karen ain't answer the phone. We'll get back to we'll get back to that in a minute. Then she calls Sabrina. Sabrina don't answer the phone. So finally she calls Danny. Danny is still begging Mr. Cowboy to get back in bed. And he ends up making her answer the phone. And she's like, listen, can you come pick me up? And Danny was like, girl, I ain't got no gas in my car. She was like, you ain't got no credit card or something. She said, girl, I don't have no gas in my car. You're going to have to just call somebody else. And then Andy was like, well, I called the girls. They're not answering, so I need you. And she was like, oh, so you done called the other girls. I'm the last one, and I'm the only one to answer the phone, so now you need me. And I was like, Andy, listen, I know you got a lot going on right now, and your mind probably ain't thinking, but you already know that Danny and her feelings about this whole feeling like she the odd man out situation. You could have worded that differently, girl. You didn't have to say you had already called everybody else first, okay? But I'm going to give Andy the benefit of the doubt. You are stranded on the side of the road. Just found out your boyfriend embezzled some money, and the FBI done raided, took your phone, took your car, took a child. Your brain probably wasn't processing. So she was like, well, where are you? And Andy was like, I'm on, Country Road 45 at the 9 mile mark. Danny was like, how the hell am I supposed to find that? Now, Cowboy was like, oh, I know where that is. She was like, of course you would. Of course you would. So they agree to go and pick Andy up. But first, Danny wants a little quickie, girl. But you wonder why she called you last. She done told you she's stranded on a country road. But you got time to get a quickie. Calling you from a phone that ain't yours. Ain't hers. Girl. But you wonder why she called you last. So Andy was like, why are you being so? So the dude was like, I'll wait while your ride gets there. And she was like, well, why are you being so nice to me? And he said, look, I got a confession. I do need to tell you something. She was like, what? He said, I work for the FBI. And, I was one of the guys there. And, my boss, that was real extra what my boss did. Like, he didn't have to leave you stranded on the side of the road. Like, he could have let you take your purse and your phone. Like, he's a real jerk. And she was like, yeah, like, that was a bit much. And so they get to talking a little bit, and he asked her again. He said, listen, I really can give you a ride. Like, your friend don't have to come all the way out here. Like, I really can give you a ride. So she ends up calling Danny back and saying, listen, I got a ride, don't worry about it. And she was like, yeah, but I'm gonna meet you at your apartment, because I don't know what's going on with you. Like, what's the deal? Like, what's going on? So they're in the car riding, and she starts asking him questions, and he's telling her, he's like, listen, this man, we got him for embezzlement and racketeering. Like, his first wife is the person, who gave us all this information, who basically turned us on to him. And she was like, his first wife. He was like, yeah, you ain't know he was married before? She was like, for how long? He said, I think like 6 months. So she looked at the paperwork. He showed her the file. He said, I'm really not supposed to give you this information, but I think you need to really see what's going on. So he lets her see the file, and in the file, it said that he was married, but it was annulled after a month. And so dude was like, wait a minute, I don't think that's right. Like, I thought he was married longer than that. She was like, it's right here in the file. He said, okay, well, you might need to read further. And she said, no, I'm good. I don't need to read nothing else. So then she was like, listen, can I see him? And he was like, I don't think that's a good idea. She said, listen, I need to see him. So then he was like, well, you know what? My boss probably will let you talk to him. She was like, why? So you could record the conversation? He was like, as long as you know that's what's going to happen. And she was like, all right, well, let me, take me to him. I just need to talk to him. So they get to the station, and she was like, I done had nothing to do with this. He was like, listen, I don't know what you had. I don't know what you did or didn't do, or what part of this you played. All I know is this is what the paperwork says. And, because once he transferred money into her name, that's why it seems like she was a part of this. So then they bring Gary in, and she confronts him. She was like, what's going on? He was like, listen, this is all my wife. Like, I know this looks really bad, but I promise you, I didn't do anything. And she was like, well, you did everything she said you was going to do. You tried to isolate me, keep me away from my friends. This, and he was like, when did you have a conversation with her? He was like, after she said at the hospital, and she told me everything you were going to do, and you did it. And he was like, oh my God. He said, listen, I did not do this. I am not guilty. I know this looks bad, but you got to believe me. She was like, I don't believe you. She said, why didn't you tell me you were married? He was like, married? He said, you know about my wife. What are you talking about? She said, you were married before. He said, I've never been married before. She was like, stop lying to me. Yes, you were. He was like, no, like for real. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I never been married before. So at this point, I'm sitting here going, I don't know whether he's telling the truth or lying my damn self at this point. Was he married before? Was he not married before? Did his wife set him up? Is he really stealing the money? Was he really trying to isolate Andy? Or did he really just, I don't know anymore my damn self. Okay? Tyler, you really have, bravo, because you have confused the hell out of me. Okay? I don't know what's going on at this point. But Andy says, listen, I'm done. He was like, what you mean you done? Andy said, I'm done. He said, so you mean to tell me when I need you the most is when you gonna leave me? Andy said, listen, it's just too much. Like, I gotta get off this merry-go-round. This is too much right now. He was like, all right, fine then. So the minute he say fine, she turn around and comes back and talking about something, well, I'm sorry, but you gotta understand how hard this is for me. He was like, you can go. She said, but he yelled at her. He said, just go. Get the fuck out of here. And she said, well, your temper is not making me think that, like, everything is everything. Like, your temper is making me feel some kind of way. And so he looking at her like, if you don't get the fuck out of here. So we'll get back to Andy in a second. So down to the hospital, we got Karen and we have, oh shoot, now, I keep wanting to say Duval, which is, of course, his real name. But they down at the hospital, and of course he got stabbed, but he's stitched up, and basically he's talking to Karen, and she was like, I appreciate you being there. He was like, yeah, I know. He was like, where old boy at? He was like, you done left me in here getting stitched up when you went to go check on old boy. And she was like, listen, can we not do this right now? Like this is just a lot. He said, he said, so where did the dude go? He was like, she said, oh, my mama dropped him off at the emergency room. And he was like, your mama really is just gangster. And she was like, yeah, I know. And so she ends up giving him a ride back to the house because he was like, where are you staying? And she said, I'm gonna stay with Andy, because he was trying to say, well, I'll stay at the house with you. And she was like, I ain't staying there, I'm gonna stay with Andy. And so he said, well, at least let me go back to the apartment to clean up. Like, that is my blood. She was like, boy, you done been stabbed. You're in pain. Like, you really don't need to be doing that. He was like, listen, I'm good. I can handle it. So they end up going back to the apartment. And while they're riding back, of course, he's telling her he loves her. And, he's so sorry. And she was like, listen, can we not do this right now? And he was like, what you mean, do what? She was like, can we not have the I want you back, I'm gonna do better, I'm sorry I did anything to you conversation? And he was like, see, that's not even what I was gonna say. She was like, he said, okay, well, I was gonna say some of that. He said, but you know what, at this point I already know that I just need to show you better than I can tell you, because I've said it all before, but now I need to show you that I really do want to do better. He said, listen, I know you like old boy and all, but all I'm asking is that you give me time. Can you just take things slow with him and give me time to show you that I'm going to do better? And so she was just like, I can't. And he said, listen, just give me some time. So they get to the apartment and the police are still outside. And she was like, oh my gosh, the police are still here. Like, I can't do this. I can't deal with the police right now. Can you go in there and check? And of course he was like, why you? He was like, hell, I don't like the police. Why you sending me in there? And she was like, can you please? So he goes into the apartment to check to see what's going on with the police situation. And it's old girl. Y'all remember old girl that he ended up flirting with, that ended up flirting with him, that come to find out they went to high school together and he had slept with her once and like ghosted her or whatever. So of course it ends up being her. Y'all know how that goes, child. And so she, was kind of like, so you would be involved in this? And he was like, listen, we was in here minding our business. Dude just busted in the door. Like, I just came. I need to get the phone. Can I get? And she was like, well, who lives here? And he was like, me and my girlfriend. And she was like, oh, so you was flirting with me and you had a girlfriend the whole time? And he was like, no, actually, you was flirting with me. I don't know what you're talking about. You were flirting with me. And so he was like, well, can I just get my girl's phone? And she was like, no, like, we can't release anything until the scene is clear. And he was like, but, you know, um, but, it's really nothing here to see. She said, yeah, but until we know better, we have to treat this like, well, she said a homicide, but attempted homicide because dude ain't dead. Um, like an attempted homicide investigation. So, like, we should be done in about 45 minutes and then you can come back in then. But right now, like, I can't let you in and I can't give you anything. And so he was like, okay, cool. So he goes back out to the truck to tell Karen, I'll stay here and wait until they clear your apartment. You going over to Andy's, I'll get your phone and stuff and I'll bring it to you. Then I'll come back and clean up the apartment. And so she was like, okay. And he was like, I love you. And so he's getting out the truck and they kiss or whatever. And he getting out the truck and he see old girl standing there. And she was like, that don't look like y'all ain't together to me. Because he had told her, well, we ain't really together anymore. He was like, listen, it's okay. And so he was like, you came out here to see what she looked like, huh? And she was like, she tried to play it off like, no, I'm doing my job. And then she was like, I mean, she cute or whatever. And so they kind of get to flirting again. And, so he waits. And then when they get done, she comes out there and she brings him the phone and stuff. And she says, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I ain't really looking for no relationship. I'm just looking for some booty. Okay. So give me a call. Let me give you my number. He was like, nah, I got your number from the last time. I'm good. She was like, all right, well, give me a call. Like I said, I ain't looking for no complication. So, next thing you know, we see Karen rolling up to Andy's apartment. And who was at her apartment? The FBI searching her place. So, of course, Karen is like, what the hell is going on here? And Andy come around the corner, and it's the same FBI agent that picked her up off the side of the road. And she was like, what are you doing here? And he was like, everything in this apartment belongs to us. Baby, Andy loses it. She was like, what you mean everything in this apartment belongs? She said, that's my apartment. That's my stuff. And that's where the episode ends. But here's where y'all are in luck. Y'all that gave us a 2-for-1. So I'm about to watch episode 2, and I'll get that to y'all tonight. Talk to you later. Peace.